All right. So last week we've gone over some other commands and using the polyline tool, using the AutoCAD to transfer it into Rhino and transfer it vice versa. So for this week's content, I wanted you guys to utilize those and actually start putting it within your model. So right now I have mine disassembled. This would be later on, so let me hide this. Later on to where when we start to show the 3D printing techniques. But the first thing I'm going to be going over is the deliverables. So by this point, I'm expecting the model to be at least 90% done to completed right now. And due to that, I'm wanting, I'm going to want the deliverables for that model. The deliverables being elevations, sections, and perspectives. So three unique things that I'm going to want for your model. Of course, these perspectives are going to be the interior of the model, and another thing would be axos, or isos in this case. So let's go over isometrics. So first and foremost, how do you even access isometrics? The same way you change the actual view of your Rhino, you can just set the view as a isometric. So if you set the view, you'll first go to the top left, go to the down arrow, click set view, click isometric. There's four different types: the northeast, northwest, southeast, and southwest. The four cardinal directions, of course. And from what I want, I kind of only want two of them. I don't want all four of them because that's going to be a little excessive. But in choosing which one you want, I want you to choose the best, the most information, kind of like in Studio. Where in Studio, the main point is whenever you start drawing the isometric or axonometric for your actual model, it's the main important place or the best view for your model that you cannot explain if you never had that model to begin with in your hands. It's the best shot of your overall model. In my case, for this model, it could be this shot right here because it shows the actual information of the tip of the the tip the frontwards, the small node coming towards me, whereas the information in the back will start receding backwards to it. This could be a good place to actually make a isometric, or this way where the actual small node is facing away and then we have this large portion facing towards me. I would choose these two isometrics. So I would set the view isometric northeast. Now I know this is the northeast. So if I want to save this exact view, I would go, remembering from last video lecture, you have to have your name views open. Refer to the other video if you don't remember how to do that. And let me delete this one. Right now you should have nothing, but I had something before. I deleted it. I'm going to show you things now. To save it, you click this little plus icon. If you hover over it, it's going to tell you save as. If you click it, it's going to tell you to name it, and let's just name this ISO 1. You don't have to worry about naming it. This is just your own preference. I'm not going to be seeing the name. I'm going to be seeing the actual PNG, the view capture file of this image itself. So we have the first isometric, so one of the deliverables. Now I want the second one. So we change the set view and we do the other side. Nope. You can start to see like this is, I don't like this isometric, so I'm not going to choose it. So let's do another view. Isometrics off east. There we go. This is the one I want. Okay, so now that I have this, I save as isometric 2. So we have two of the deliverables for your model. In the future, I'm telling you to do these to actually, once we start getting to V-Ray next week, it's important to have these set view. So make sure you have these saved and ready to be accessed. Same for your perspectives once we start getting into that, because those will we're going to need to actually start your renderings for your own model. So besides that, we have our one of our deliverables done. Next up, how do we get our perspectives? So if we go back to the color wheel, the properties within Rhino, you're going to see a variety of information. One of the key things you want to have turned on is the projection. Right now I have it on parallel, but I'm having my mouse over it. Hopefully you can see a mouse. I can see it up there. Okay, yeah. So where my mouse is, I'll change this to 2-point perspective. We all know 2-point perspective is just two vanishing points on the left and right of the screen, and that's where these lines are intersecting and going towards. So that's what we mainly want for this. So now we have to find a good perspective for our model. In these cases, the perspectives, I want two exterior perspectives and two interior perspectives. Of course, exterior perspectives being something like this. It's similar to an axonometric. These are the axonometrics or isometrics are just a standstill. They are a top view at an angle. Whereas a perspective shot, you're looking around it, imagining you're on the ground looking up at this building. This is what I consider a perspective shot, an exterior perspective shot. And let's say you wanted this. This is like the perfect shot you want. You turn the camera around, get the perfect angle, and let's say this is what I want. This is perfect. Now from here, as you all know, click the plus sign and just name it exterior 1. Now we want the second exterior. And what I want that to be, maybe this shot. It's your own preference, so of course you're going to need a good eye. You want to see what's the best part of your model, and this is how you're going to want to showcase it. So let's say this is what I want. And from here, I save it as exterior 2. There's one part. Now we need our interior perspectives. To get our interior perspectives, I typically use the zoom command. So if I type in zoom, enter, I can make a click and drag. I can make a little box, and I'll zoom to that spot. And then I hold control and then right click. I hold both of them, and I can just zoom in and out of it to get a better grasp of where I am. And then I of course drag around. Right click, drag around, right click. And from here I do the zoom command again, and then zoom into somewhere else to try to get within the model. Of course I hold control and right click to zoom in and out. And from here I'll start getting the grasps of things. And right now I don't know where I am. And let's say right now everything looks the same. Where does this go? This might take a little bit. Try to get it right. I'm trying to see what's the best space. Let's go over here, zoom in. I can turn around. It orbits at that little place you zoomed in. Let's say this is a good spot. I'm within the actual plane right here, and then the actual mass of the small node. So this is what I want to showcase. So one of the limiting things that we can't see currently is that what I'm seeing right now is horizontal. How do we view it as a vertical space? Because in this little shot, I want to be looking up, not looking side to side. To actually get the preview of that, because you can't change it within the name views, you have to start using the view capture to file. So if you go to the command line and type view capture to file, press enter, you can see I've already been messing with it. So right now you can see in the preview where my mouse is hovering over that it is vertical. And that is because the size determines the overall shape, if it's going to be horizontal or if it's going to be vertical. Your typical size, so the computer lab monitors are typically 380 or 3820 by 2160. So I think it's 4K. I think they're 4K monitors. There might be 2K monitors or something a little bit above that. I don't know exactly, but what you typically have at home are 1920 by 1080p monitors. That is the normal monitor out there. And I just typically use that as reference. And so 1920 would be how many pixels horizontally would it would be. If I change this value to, let's say 2000, you're going to see that it got skinnier. If I decrease the width of it, in this case, let's say 400, it's going to get even skinnier. But you can see there's going to be more to the top. You can see more above it. But I always want to keep it like set in stone. There's like a limit. I'm going to do, let's see the horizontal, so 1920 by 1080. So this is our typical monitor. This is what we typically see within the actual Rhino space. And to change it to vertical, you just basically switch these two numbers. So where the 1920 is, I do 1080, and where the 1080 is, I do 1920. The reason I use these numbers is because when we get into V-Ray, V-Ray uses these numbers. So we want to keep consistency between V-Ray and Rhino, because in the future we're going to combine those two to get overlapping of views so that we can actually make our graphics. So consistency is key. Of course, you don't want this to be 1000, because if you did do that and then you try to do some graphics with V-Ray, they're not going to line up. So make sure there are these numbers. Of course, when you get into the V-Ray, I think you can change it. So change it to be similar. So if you did have it to 1000 by 2000, you can change it in V-Ray to make it 1000 by 2000 to keep it consistent. But I just use these two numbers because they're universally known for monitor sizes, and I typically use it a lot for monitor sizes, so this is why I use it. And of course, the scale, that's the quality of the overall view capture. And now you know that. This is the view capture settings, this window. This is how you're going to save your PNGs, your other view capture files. I mean, your other name views, and then submit it within Canvas. So these are how you're going to save it and then upload it to as well to get the PNGs or JPEGs for the image. And from here, let's say this is what you want. If you wanted to see this little void space up here, if this is not what you want, we can cancel. And then we just adjust the camera to look more up. And then we do view capture again. You're going to see on the top of the vertical, it's going to be more information above there. Let's say this is the perfect shot. You just cancel and make sure you don't move it. Save this name view. Name it interior 1. Well, we have a first interior shot. Now, we find our second one. And I'm just going to make this one quick. Be quick. So let's do it there. And then me looking directly up at my model. Where's the void space? Right there. Of course, you want some sense of ground, that you're standing on something to get the overall idea. Like, I'm in this space. This is what's compressing me. This is what's making me feel open, etc., etc. But that's you to justify. So let's say this is my second interior shot that I also. Oh wait, not saving it. But I want to check first. So that I also want to be seeing vertically. So I do view capture file. Oh, that's not a really good perspective. In my case, I would like move it around to get a better angle at stuff. Mainly trying to get the perfect view because I did not like that. Let's say this, and then I do view capture again. It's a lot of adjusting, but in the end, if you get something you like, let's say this is like the perfect shot. Okay, this is the perfect shot. This is what I want. I'm not going to move my camera. Just save it. Interior 2. So we've gotten our isometrics, we've gotten our exterior shots, we've gotten our interior shots. Now, what is left? What is left are our sections and elevations. To get our sections and elevations, we're going to be using the commands that we've talked about before. For our sections, we need clipping, either clipping planes or clipping sections. I'm going to be using clipping sections for today. I've typed in the command right now and pressed enter. And right now I just got to select what I want to cut. And now that I've selected it, I just press enter. It's going to tell me where I want to place it. And let's place it right here and press enter. Now we have a little section cut. I'm going to be going over how do you actually fill this in. So if you guys don't remember, I went to the options tab. I went to view. Let me explode display modes. And the fill option only affects what view you're on. So right now, let me check what view I'm on. I am on Arctic. So if I do options again, I expand view, expand display modes, and then click on Arctic and expand that. And of course, expand objects. It's a lot of expanding. Click clipping planes because that's what we're messing with. Messing with a clipping plane. So, and then these are what I mainly change. Get a good look at it. You can change it on your own Rhino, but this is what I use. I use the edge thickness of 3. You can change that yourself, but I typically use 3. And solid color, black, but this one right here, the gray one right here, this is what I mainly use. So the color usage for you guys would be under viewport. You can see it change to white, change viewport to solid color, and then from here you can click this bar right under solid color, and a new window will pop up. It would be this window. And from here, you just select the value you want. If you wanted the red infill, just put it to red. You're gonna see that the fill within the section cut is red now, but we want it a little grayish dark. So just choose a value between the white and the black to be a little grayish and dark, and click OK. And perfect. That's what we want. Of course, you can just rewind this to see the settings again. Rewind it if you need to. So we have our section cut. Of course, you want to choose the best section cut of your model. You don't want to just be lackluster. And let's say this, I'm not getting nitpicky. Let's say this was the best section for the model. How do I save it? So if we go back to the shaded view, if I'm on the shaded view now, you're going to see I'm looking at the X and Z plane. This is going to be important. So I'm facing X and Z. So if I unzoom out, we're going to make a new viewport or a new new viewport. We're gonna, what am I doing? Okay, so we're gonna have to split one of these horizontally. So select whichever one is gonna turn blue for whatever you selected, and you can right click. Can you right click it? No. Click the plus sign and then split horizontally or vertically, depends on you. Let's do the vertical. You're gonna see that I have two new or have an extra viewport made. I'm gonna change this to its X and Z. The Z and X has to be the other way. So the opposite of the front view would be the back view. So I have to set this to back. There we go. Now it's been set to back. I zoom out, find my model. Here it is. And let me change this to Arctic. You're gonna see that's not being cut, and that's because I haven't set my clipping plane to allow that this viewport can see it or not. So to actually enable it so that I can see the clipping plane cut, I select the clipping plane itself. And if you go to your color wheel in Rhino, you're gonna get a variety of options right here. This one's the back view. So I look for back, which is right here. I check it off, and there we go. We have a separate view for our Rhino. And from here, we can just save it as is, and we move on to the next view. So I'm gonna make another viewport for the second section cut. So how do we do that? We go back to our perspective, and I'm gonna hide this because if you delete it, actually let me show you what happens if you delete it. So if you delete this, the section cut, the clipping plane and the section is gone now. So you don't want to delete it because you're gonna lose whatever you were trying to show. So we're gonna hide it for now, and it's not gonna mess up this view at all. We're gonna see less clutter. Oh, before we hide it, let's uncheck the perspective so that we can see the entire model. So now we can hide it. We zoom back into perspective. Now let's make our second section cut. So let's do clipping section, oop, clipping section. Okay, here we go. And let's say I don't want it to be vertical right now. I want it to be, oops, I want it to be more horizontal. So I'm going to click on the clipping plane and then rotate it 90, 180. Oop, I did a 180, I mean 90. Rotate it 90, there we go. Now that it's turned sideways, if I drag it down towards the model, it's going to be cutting it downward. And from here, we're just looking for the best section cut line. And let's say that looks good. Wow, this is perfect. Okay. Now we have the perfect. We know that Y and X is the top view, because if we go to the top view, it looks almost exactly the same. And of course, we highlight this, we change this to top view. And since we're currently on the top view right now, of course, it's going to affect it. And then let's go back to perspective. And let's change it to not affect perspective. We have successfully, if I go back to the other viewports, made new viewports, or you can use existing viewports. So we made a new viewport to accommodate the section cut, or we use the currently existing one to accommodate the section cut line. And we just hide this. Well, now we have this. What do we do? Let me change this view to Arctic. And you're going to see there's an issue with my model. Let me go to top view. Let's show the clipping plane again. You're going to see sometimes within your model, you're going to have issues to where some pieces of your model are not whole. So if we find that one, it's weird. Maybe just sing through it. All of these should be perfect. Nope. One of these objects is not perfect, but let me see if I can find it to show you a remedy to actually be able to solve it. It doesn't look like it. What I'm viewing right now is I'm clicking on the object and then looking at the type of object it is. What you really want to see is a closed solid poly surface. I have a highlighter right here. That's what you absolutely need to see within your model. Because if it says something along the lines of a non-manifold, that means that that object will highly unlikely be able to print, which of course you do want to 3D print, or you want your model to be able to be 3D printed. So always keep a lookout on that. And it looks perfect right now. It's probably the fill line. So let me actually change it. Listen to it again. Options. We're on Arctic view, Arctic objects, clipping planes. Oh, everything looks fine. Rendered. Let's see what rendered looks like. It's gonna look too dark. Let's go back to Arctic. It's just looking funny. Let me explode this piece and join it. Oh, now whenever I exploded it, it made it not want to be part of this, part of the clipping plane selection. So if you ever want to add something, so let me actually show you a way. So you can see that the clipping plane isn't affecting, it's not slicing through this box. But if you did want it to be affected by this clipping plane alone, instead of trying to make a new one, you can click on the actual clipping plane where it says section underscore 00, and you can include objects. So if you click on objects right here, it's going to select everything that's currently within the model. And now you just click on the ones you want in. Right, let's show you this one as an example, and this one right here. And once you've selected what you want, press enter, and voila, now they're being cut. That's one way to add, and of course, you can subtract. Uh, but typically you don't want to subtract, and that's how you can add. Go back to top view. You can see it's still being funky. Now I really want to affect the fill line as well. So if we go back to options and uncheck so fill. No, maybe this one, this viewport is actually having an issue. So let me split it horizontally. So if I click it, click the plus sign down here, and split horizontally, make a new top view. I'm gonna rename this one. I'm gonna actually change it to something else. Set view, let's go back. I select this and change it to top view. Oh, still showing the same thing. That is just weird. Interesting. Oh well. In my case, I'm having an issue. I probably did something a long while ago, but overall, that's how you're going to get your clipping planes and everything within your model, and that's how you get your sections. We have our sections. We have our, let me go back to the view. We have sections. We have interior. Actually, don't know how to get this one out here. Oh, this is new. Oh, okay. So apparently, when you use clipping sections now, they show up within your named views. That is something new that hasn't happened. Why, I don't know why they're showing the same thing. Let's show selected. Change this back to perspective. Redo the C plane. I don't know why the C plane. Oh, the C plane changes because of the overall. What am I gonna do? Oh well. So here's my second one. Oh, maybe it's because the names are interfering. I change it to 1. 0, 0. Let's do 5. Change the name. Let's see if that changed anything. Boom, boom. Ah, okay, so they were conflicting names. That actually makes sense. So, I just learned something for the clipping sections. Make sure that the clipping section names are different. Let me go over that again. If I click on the clipping section itself and make sure you're on the color wheel itself, the properties, you can change the name of the actual clipping plane when it orders his name. I'll just name this one vertical section. Press enter. See, I just named it. Just changed to vertical section. And let me change the other one. If I change the view to perspective again, change this section. Make sure you select it to horizontal. Okay, what's wrong? Horizontal section. Press enter. That's not supposed to horizontal, but now we have our 2 clipping planes. You go back to our name views, and I don't know why it's not updating here, but we now have our 2 sections within our name views. So we have our sections, we have our interior shots, we have our exterior shots. Make sure you hide these, so if you hide them, because you don't want to see in the end product. ISO views, we have one final thing, which are the elevations. So elevations are literally just, if I go back, they're just new viewports showing the overall orientation an elevational view of your model. So what am I doing? Oh yeah, Arctic view. There we go. This is an elevation view. I'm looking at the right elevation, and if I wanted to see another elevation, I literally just change it to the back, the front view. Now this is the front elevation. You can see this is a small node, and you see the other armature in the back. And I'm only asking for, let's just do 3 elevations. So we have our first elevation. I'm just going to save this as front view. And let's go to our set view, set it to left. Let's say this is perfect. Now we just view capture the file. Oh, no, sorry. Not view capture. Save it as a name view. Save it as left. And our third option, set view. And let's do top. The top view is a little funky. This is a bottom view. Set view, bottom. Yeah, something's up with the top and bottom. For me, at least. I don't know for you guys. So we have our front view, we have our left view. Let's do our right view. We got a right view, and then we just save it. Boom, and right. We have everything now. We have our elevations, we have our sections, we have our perspectives, and our sections. I said that. And interior shots, exterior shots, yada yada, ISOs. So, from here, you can either just, if you zoom into one, you can just select it one. Make sure the render is on Arctic. Make sure it's on Arctic. You can also do it on rendered. On rendered. But for rendered, mine's gonna be completely black because I've been messing with it in V-Ray. This is my own stuff. But typically you're not gonna see any show edges. Let me turn on. Oh no, it's not the sun settings. Yeah, my Rhino is acting up right now. So typically you can just do the display options. You can type in display properties within the actual in the rendered view, and you can turn on surface edges. This allows you to see the edges within a render panel. Let me open up a new one, a fresh one, see if anything's wrong with it. New feet. If I go boom, it's my rendered messed up here. Yeah, no, it's just this file. That file itself is messed up. You guys shouldn't have an issue. But you're gonna see my rendered has the actual edges. So if we go to display properties, I type it out, you can see surface edges. See? You can see mine disappear. Boom. Boom. Oh, not this one. Surface edges. You're gonna see that there's an edge now. So it's either using Arctic or using rendered. Typically rendered is better because you're not gonna see this ambient occlusion that this Rhino has. So if I set this back to Arctic view, you're gonna see that there's like some weird shadows on the bottom right here where it's hugging the ground and stuff. On rendered, typically you won't see that. And if you want to get fancy with it, you can turn on the sun setting and actually start to get some shadows within this space. And that's probably what's wrong with mine. But let's say I go back to the other Rhino, this Rhino itself. So this is my rendered panel. And if I turn on sun on here, turn it on, and where's it at? Manually control it. What is it on over here? This is. Where is the sun? Where typically, whenever you turn the sun on, you can start shooting the shadow. Let's make a base right now. Yeah, there's your shadow right there. I guess it's not registering since it's just floating in free space that there's going to be a shadow on the ground, so it can't really export it down. But the sun sheddings, the sun settings are typically for and you want to export and start rendering stuff out, it's going to make a platform for you, and then it's going to adjust the sun for you. So if I go back to our main model itself, I've now shown you all the deliverables. I'm showing you how to get them. So how to get the ISO views, how to get the exterior views, how to get the interior views, how to get your sections, vertical section, horizontal section, how you get your elevations. So how do we compile all that? You can either select it one by one, type view capture the file, press enter, and export them one by one boring way. And of course, since we talked about that the interior shots were vertical, whenever you do the other ones that are supposed to be horizontal, make sure you change it back to 1920 by 1080 and save it like that. Don't forget to do that. And one things you want is transparent backgrounds. Make sure that is checked off so you don't have all this white noise and behind your model. You want to only focus on your model, so we want a transparent background. Of course, from here you click OK. It's going to save it to your computer. Let me save it to my desktop. Click Save. Computer's going to lag a bit, and then here it is. If I open it up, it's on my second monitor. There is one isometric view. Or we can start something similar to what we did in AutoCAD. If you remember layouts. What you can do in AutoCAD, you can practically just do in Rhino. But you need to know AutoCAD because that's what firms use, depending on the firm, of course. So what you can do in Rhino is you can actually start changing line weights. You can start doing your actual like floor plans within Rhino. But I'm not going to get into that because that's more AutoCAD stuff and that's a little bit more advanced stuff. Of course, you can learn it yourself. It isn't that difficult to learn the actual line weights and stuff for Rhino itself, but it's the same tool as AutoCAD. So let's get into layouts. So on the bottom corner, the same way we actually split the views, we can actually make a new layout. You're going to see on the top it says new layout, like that. Now we can set up a page. Right now what we're trying to do is this layout will be our spread. It's going to be your quote-unquote pinup board. So if you remember from your juries, you guys are going to set up your material. You guys are going to cut out your, not cut out, but you guys are going to have your Bristol paper already. You're going to organize the stuff however you want. Of course, your TAs or your professor is going to tell you that there's going to be a set orientation for how your pinup board is going to look. So in my case, I want to see what you guys do. I'm going to show an example of what I want, not of what I want, of what I'm going to lay it out as, but let's first actually make the pinup board. So I'm going to name this as that pinup board. You can name it whatever you want. This is your own file. I'm not going to be able to see this. And from here, you can set up the initial detail count. So this is basically a preset. So right now I typically always do none, but you can make it to where once you've made this layout, it's going to have a top view. It's going to only one thing. It's going to have a top view. The second option is going to have a top and front view. Third option, top, front, and right view, and etc. etc. I just do none, and I just create my own. The printer, for now, just do Adobe PDF because you're going to upload it to Canvas. You're not going to be printing this out. Because we're losing time. We lost time due to the hurricane, unfortunately. Hope you guys are doing okay. And well, besides that, I'm doing okay myself. But other than that, make sure you choose Adobe PDF. Size. So, what do we want this size to be? Let's do good old Arc C. So, change the size to Arc C, 18 by 24, and let's make it portrait. So, if you don't know the difference between portrait and landscape, portrait is your vertical, your landscape is your horizontal. So we want it vertical. So let's choose portrait. And of course, the width is just confirming 18 by 24 because of the arc C. And from that, let's click OK. it's going to immediately change the view to your layouts. So if you see on the bottom of your screen, you're going to see pinup board, what you just named it. Of course, you can select along the bottom what views you want to show. From here, you're going to have nothing here. Well, how do you add something? To add something, similar to how we did in Rhino, in AutoCAD. In AutoCAD, it's called viewports, but in Rhino, it's called detail. They're always changing it up, but in Rhino, it's called a detail. So, once you have typed out detail in the command line, press enter. If you read on the command line, it's going to say detail viewport. That's asking you, what do you want to add? So, of course, since I said add, click. You can either click on it or type A. In my case, I always like clicking on this because I don't want to type something wrong. So let me click on add. Now it's just going to tell me how big this viewport's going to be. You can either do it the entire thing, but since we're doing multiple things on one page, we're doing something smaller here. So click one corner, click the other corner. Now we have our first viewport. And similar to how they work in AutoCAD, if you can double click within it and then mess on the inside and double click to get out. Very, very similar to AutoCAD. You can click on these little nodes right here and then make it bigger, make it smaller if you want. It's up to your choosing. Let's make it smaller like that. So how do we actually get these to manifest onto here? You can either drag it onto here, so you can click, hold, drag onto the actual viewport you made, and it will copy it onto there. So if I did the vertical section, dragged it onto here, it's going to change it to that specific view. If I do the interior, change it right there, it's going to do that view. Oh, now you know. So you can either drag that specific view onto here, and of course, double click out and just make this smaller, make this wider, like pretty up to actually fit within the space. There we go. We have our first view. Of course, double click inside, similar to how you change the view. So once you've double clicked inside, click the top arrow and then change it to Arctic. There we go. We have our first one. I'm going to move it up. Voila. We have our first little thing on here, first viewport on here. Now, you can either hold Alt and then copy it over to get our second viewport, or you can do the detail thing. If I do detail again, click add, and then just make a new one, you can do that as well. Or you can just click on the actual viewport, hold Alt, and then drag, and then you can copy it like that. So let's get our second. Let's get our second view part. So make sure you double click inside if you want to change it to that view. And now we have our isometric views on the top. Let's change these to be the vertical perspectives. So interior 1. Don't forget to change the render. So go here, change it to Arctic. There's 1. And interior 2. Oh, make sure you double click within it. Interior 2. Change it to Arctic. So we have our two perspectives. Of course, if you edit this, I think, make sure you get the right proportions. You have to do it by eye in this case. And then move these to a centered position. So we have our perspectives here. I wish I could line them up easier, but we have our isometrics, we have our perspectives. Now we need our duplicating them. Now we need our exterior perspectives. So double click in here, change it to that, double click in here, change it to that. This one's being faded away. Voila. We have these. Let's move them. Boom, boom. And then this one's going to be right under it. Lock it. Boom. And then just get a little more organized. Let's hold shift to make these a little bigger, just to fill out some space. Now we have our ISOs, we have our exterior perspectives, we have our interior perspectives. Now we just have to put in our sections. So let me copy these down. Vertical section. Well, first double click on it. Vertical section. Double click on this one. Change it to, will this work? Yep. Our second section. Since we made our two clipping planes, it's made it for us. And for these, I want these a little bigger. To make these a little bigger, select the viewport. You can select both of them. And then you see this little square right here. You can be any square. Hold shift first on your keyboard, hold shift, and then click and drag. Cold click and drag it to make these bigger. The reason these didn't get bigger is because I didn't select all of it. So now that I selected everything, because I did halfway, some nodes didn't get selected. So make sure you select the entire thing. Let me do it again. There we go. Sections are the most important piece. So let's make the viewport bigger, and then from here you can double click in and zoom in to fit the actual page. So if that's what I want, boom, boom, wow, boom, and let's zoom in more like that. And there we go. We have our sections done. Boom, boom. Now we have that. And what is left? Our elevations. Let's move these over a little bit. Oh, now our elevation is going to be on this right hand side. So I'm going to duplicate this one. I want to make another detail. Make it smaller. A little bigger. And then copy it 2 more times. Boom, boom. Let me adjust it to make it look at least a little good. So we have our 3 elevations right here. So double click here, get our front elevation. Boom, there's one. Our left elevation. Boom, there's another. And then our right elevation. Click and drag. Of course, oops. We do it again. Right elevation. Double click in, right elevation. Double click in, left elevation. These are going to be a little longer, so let me shift these over. Click on this one. Let me click this node and then extend it a bit. There we go. Click on this one, click on a node, extend it a bit so that it can fit. And adjust it to fit in there. There we go. We have all the deliverables within one sheet. Of course, if these were any nicer, I did better perspectives and all that, this would look a lot better. But we have, this is all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 4, 5, 10, 11. Yes, we have all of our deliverables on a single piece of layout. So, how do we export this out? Simple as in AutoCAD, Control P. With Control P, of course, we did ArcC. Remember, make sure you remember what you changed the page size as. So Adobe PDF, leave it on Adobe PDF. Now we set the size of it. We did ArcC, so we look for that ArcC. And of course, it's going to adjust it, but right now it's showing a landscape viewport. We did a portrait, so make sure orientation is on portrait. Perfect. So this is what we want, right? So now we have these two options. Right here, the output type is a vector output or rasterized output. This can get, okay, these two options are very different. So in terms, let me explain it. A vector output is preferred because a vector output is, no matter how small you shrink it and how big you make it, the file size or the file itself will always be the same quality if you're working within a vector space. So in Photoshop, it is a rasterized space. So now to explain what rasterize is, rasterization is basically working in pixels. If you make an image smaller, it will reduce the amount of pixels in that area. So it might be a little difficult to explain in this terms. If you have a box that has 16 pixels and you made it bigger, you're not going to get any more pixels than what you already have. So those pixels are only getting bigger. So if that pixel was like a 1 by 1 and then you try to make that image bigger, so it was like 11 by 17 and you turned it into an arc B or arc C, it's going to look very crappy because you just turned something, you just made the pixels bigger and it didn't stay the same quality. Same as if you make it smaller. With a rasterized output, if you make it smaller, you're losing pixels. So it's very bad to shrink and enlarge a rasterized image because you're going to be losing and you're going to be losing pixels as much as making those pixels worse whenever you enlarge it. Whereas vector output, even if you shrink it, even if you make it bigger, it's going to stay the same count and it's going to look better overall. So vector output is what I always choose. Rasterized output, I don't really choose. Sometimes you have no choice, like Photoshop, it's always like a rasterized output whenever you PNG it, but what can you do? Any vector's output is in this not well InDesign is a vector output. So since it's like you're working with books with InDesign, it's perfect for using vectors because you're not losing quality just because you're shrinking and making the image bigger. And another program called Illustrator. It's very similar to InDesign and Photoshop. It uses vector, so those are other programs that use vector. Now, besides that, we have our output type. Always make sure it's on vector output. We change our output color, make it black and white, or if you have color within your model, uh, I'm not saying you can't do that. It's better to ask for forgiveness. It's better to ask for forgiveness than for permission. So, if you do have color within your model, that would look nice. That's up to you. It's going to be your portfolio in the end. So, if you do want to make it look nice, you can start adding little bits of color, maybe the sticks within Rhino, or a different shade of color than you actually think it is. So, if there is color, make sure it's on display color. But for now, since we're not using color right now, black and white. Of course, we want to choose our pinup board. So make sure because you can choose all these bottom left corner perspectives. It can be ISO 1, the back view, the front view, the right view. If I choose one of these, it's going to set it to that view. Oops. But we want our pinup board. Make sure it's on layout. Make sure the scale is 1 to 1. And for the rest of these settings, you don't have to mess with. Now you're done. You can officially print. So click print. This can take forever or take a short time. Depends on your computer. Let's see how long mine takes. Hopefully it doesn't mess up the recording. Yeah, I can see the recording. The frame time is going down. I'll pause the video right now. Are we back? And voila. Now we're still waiting for it. Sorry, I had to pause the recording real quick because computer was having issues trying to get this out. So one of the important things I forgot to say is to change the Control P, change it to Rhino, or you can do image, but make sure Rhino worked for me. So Rhino PDF, make sure that is on. I'll do it again right here. Let me close it out here. So Rhino PDF, click over here. It's going to say open after saving. And of course, you want to open the PDF it prints out after it saves. So once you put on the settings, click print. Then tell me where I want to print it. I'm going to do it on the desktop. I'm just going to replace the file here. I'm just going to name it V2. V2. Oh, let me go back to desktop itself. If I can click it. Save elements. There we go. Saving right now. Give a little time. Okay, so now you're gonna have perfectly right here. So we have our axonometric, we have our exterior views, we have our elevations, and we have our sections. Perfect enough. And of course, from here, just upload it right into Canvas whenever I open it up. So I'm just going to end it here. I'm going to make another one explaining 3D printing. Thank you. See you guys.